hyssop
In English?
Azov in Hebrew.
Which one?
This one.
The spindly one? Okay. Excuse me. Thank you.
The vinegar is on the hyssop plant. Okay? This is John 19:29. So we have the passage that she was referring to is Exodus 12, verse 22. We have the prayer of David, which is also talking about cleansing. This is Psalm 51:7. We have the cleansing of the leper. This is Leviticus chapter 14, verse 2 through 4. Was that verse again? Leviticus 14, 2 through 4. And then the passage with Yeshua, this is John chapter 19, verse 29. Okay, so now if we go back to our visual side and we look at this hyssop, is that correct?
Yes.
So this plant here is myrtle. Now, for people taking pictures. Right, I'll get Eric here, too. Here's my suggestion for taking pictures. Every plant that we discuss, the first thing that you should do, take a picture of the shields. Then take a picture of the plants, maybe the whole thing, and then maybe a detail shot. Okay? So the first thing to keep yourself organized, before you take any pictures and lose yourself, take a picture of the sign. We just read the plants that were used to build a sukkah. This is also one of those plants. Did it mention myrtle? It doesn't mention myrtle. But in rabbinic tradition, this is one of the plants that they use in the lulav, the myrtle. And which plant in that list do they associate it with? The leafy tree. Okay? So the list says the beautiful tree, the leafy tree, the palm tree. Okay? So they specifically picked myrtle in their tradition to represent the leafy tree, and they use it in the lulav. Lulav. Does everybody know what a lulav is?
I don't know.
Okay. It helps them, but I tell you that. So during Sukkot, every day you see these little plastic packages that they're carrying around. In that little plastic package, there's a group of plants, and they take this passage in Leviticus chapter 23 that says, God these plants, and their interpretation is that the way that they rejoice is they take these plants. They're all bundled up together and they wave them every day in a certain traditional way. All right. Yeah. And one other thing that we should know is that it's quite a popular sap that's on there. And they would collect this sap, and they would boil it down and make an incense out of it. And this is actually one of the things that myrrh comes from this plant right here. So it's one of the possibilities for example, we have the Ishmaelite traders that took Joseph to Egypt. They were bringing products, and this is probably the sap from this plant is one of the possibilities for what they might have been trading. Okay? This is common both in Gilead and in the upper Mediterranean region. And then they comb the fur of the sheep or the goats, and they would comb it out. So that's
kind of
other ways of collecting this material. If I see the acorn, I can tell exactly which kind of oak it is. Leaves, there's also some characteristics about the leaves, but there's a lot of variation in oaks, from one tree to another, even on one part of a tree to another part of the same tree. So, first of all, I want to
the identification different with the prickly part, or is it the length of the...
Okay.
Those are not eatable? Are they eatable?
Cap of the acorn. In the Tabor oak, you see these little things, they come out and then they fold backwards. So first they come up in this direction and then they fold all the way backwards like this. Can everybody see that? This is the most positive identification of when I know for sure that it's a Tabor oak. Okay? The other two oaks that we're going to look at, their acorn's totally different.
Okay, how are you describing the folding?
So the catchules, they come out in this direction and then they fold back like this. Okay? Now also the acorn is almost always bigger than the other two varieties, the other ones that we're going to look at. Okay? So this is a pretty big acorn. Right? I would. But I've done this before, so I have no, wait a second. Okay. There we go. Usually we would see acorns on this tree. So,
Like this?
nope.
Nope.
That's from a Tabor oak. Okay. So, the acorn itself stick out.
Quite a ways.
Okay, this is a completely mature. So there's a lot of variation even in one type of tree, especially in the acorns. Okay, now this is what an acorn looks for, like for a cypress oak. This is a cypress oak in English. The cap is smooth, right? Here, if you want a picture. That's from a Tabor oak, but it's broken off. What's a gall? Does anybody know where galls come from? So a gall is a product that comes when you have an aphid that kind of attacks the tree. It bites it, and the tree fights back. It'll surround the aphids and what they're doing with something like this. Now what's interesting is that a lot of times, and this is going to be our first example, we'll have a couple more, there's certain aphids that only attack particular trees. So in the case of the cypress oak, there's a particular aphid and it attacks this tree, and it always, when the tree goes to fix it, it forms a gall that looks exactly like this. I won't see it on a different oak tree. Only if I see this, I know it's from a cypress oak. So if I see that on the tree, or if I see the cone, I can tell you immediately, without seeing any other feature of this tree, that that's what kind of oak it comes from.
So it's like a protective mechanism.
Yeah.
Does it go on the branches or the leaves?
Yeah,
or
it'll be just hanging off the branch.
hanging off the branches.
Just like the acorn, more or less. Okay?
To protect itself from what?
They're little insects.
Little insect.
Okay? Okay, so those are the key diagnostics. Once again, this is deciduous, which means that the leaves are going to fall off in the winter. Once again, they have relatively big leaves. And we talked about the fuzz on the bottom, that it rubs off a lot more easily than a Tabor oak. Okay? This is very subjective, so like I said, this is not the primary one you want to use, but barley, they'll grow wheat, but this isn't the right time of year for that, so we can't see it. But what can we see? Here we have the grape. There's the tag.
Get pen. Grape.
Okay, so these are wheat, barley, grape. These are part of the 7 species of the land. But we're going to talk a little bit about grape in particular. What's some of the things that's interesting about grape is that it's actually the plant that's mentioned the most often in the Bible. Either the grape itself, wine, raisins, things that are related. It's let's see here. So wine itself is mentioned over 200 times in the Bible. Grapes, more than 50 times in the Bible. And we also have raisin, syrup, and vinegar. So whenever we see something repeatedly in the Bible, and we see it a lot, it's very significant, right? So what are some of the special things about grape? Does anybody know?
Medicine for Timothy.
For what?
Medicine for Timothy.
Timothy. That's right. That's right. How was it used? For stomach, right? So grape or wine was put in the water to help to cleanse the water, right? And to make it more palatable. Where did they get their water? They got them from all different sources. So they would add some wine to the water, and they would help to cleanse it a little bit so they wouldn't have problems with their stomach. It's also an antioxidant, just like some of the other things that we just talked about. But it's also probably the one single plant that's most associated with Yeshua and his ministry. Can anybody think of any biblical passages? It's the very first miracle, right? He changes water to wine. What else? It's one that he directly associates himself with.
And the vine near the branches.
Exactly. So would somebody like to read that for me? John 15.
John 15.
First couple verses. This is sticking through from a plant in the back, okay? That's a totally different plant. But this is the styrex. You can see the leaves. I don't see any fruit here. Maybe on this one. Here, this one we can see some of the fruit. Don't eat it. Okay, this is definitely a poisonous plant. You don't want your children to play with it. And in antiquity, they would crush some of these and they would actually use them for fishing. It's kind of like taking a bomb and throwing it in a lake and all the fish come up. Or they would poison the fish and